you're kind of, I cannot add anything. I think that it's not you, it's physics and biomechanics that is governing what we're doing. And we sent that guy in our courses and he said, you guys are always talking about balancing. And he said, balancing for him, in his studies, he did a study about walking. When you're walking, the first move you do when you walk is a lightening of this foot, and it has a result with the center of mass transferring over the stance foot. So he says, to balance effectively, you need to have a lightning move first, and then the mass will move towards the outside. Remember what we talked about last run about the car racing. The driver goes out before in when he approaches a turn. So if I'm going straight over here, I want to go towards Sunny, I will create a lightening of my left foot in order to have my mass traveling towards the outside first. Once I'm connected to the ski, it's easy to give the turn shape and have to make sure that everything's going to happen smoothly. That out before in movement is going to force you on a longer line, like we talked about. That's more the how to achieve that longer line, okay? And by the way, we're all doing this when we're teaching beginners, young kids. If we want them to turn this way, what move do we ask them to do? We airplane the opposite side they go. We're teaching them to lighten the inside half of the body so the mass transfer over the outside. Okay? That is super important. Okay?
So not load, unload first.
Exactly. So there's two types of skiers. There's two ways to balance. Pusher or puller. You're balancing by pulling your center of mass move towards the outside over your outside foot. Or if I try to push, it actually makes the opposite reaction. If I push on my right foot, I'm going to push my mass towards the inside of the turn. So the way you balance will have a huge impact on the line you'll take. The pushers are short line skiers. If I push on my right foot, I'll go for a shorter line. The pullers are going to be longer line skiers. Okay? So just give it a go over here. Start with a few snowplow turns and build it back into your skiing. Lighten versus push, okay? So the balance on your outside foot is controlled from the inside half of your body. I'm lightening the inside half to gain balance on the outside versus compressing the outside half and losing the access to the joints. Access to the joints is our first technical reference. So if you don't balance well, from the get-go, you end up compressed, you're locked up, okay? Reflect on what we've been doing so far. So just bring your uphill ski forward like this. Try to lift it. Very difficult. If you get too much lead and you let your outside foot go back with that friction, you're gonna lock yourself up. You cannot be a puller. You're stuck, you will be a pusher for sure. Bring back your feet side by side. Lighten inside foot. Now you're unlocked and you have full range of motion. So rule number one, don't let the friction pull that outside foot back, or else you won't be able to balance by lightening. Understand that in the arc, the friction will kick in the belly of the turn. Your job is to compensate that friction. If you maintain your foundation on the right spot, you will have full range of motion in the way you're balancing by lightening. Good? Second element, get as wide as you can. Try to lift your uphill foot. Very difficult. Get narrower. Try to lift your uphill foot. Much easier. What we notice, pushers are very often having a stance with the feet wider than the pelvis. If your stance is very wide, you'll end up combining edging and pressure together. You're a pusher. If you try to cure a pusher, if you try to bring the pusher to be a puller, get the stance a little bit narrower, and you will create a little bit more of a pulling effect to balance versus a pushing effect. Okay? The width of your stance has to be vertical. You look at Henrik Kristoffersson on the World Cup. He skis about horizontally.
This way.
This way. I would score at Scrabble with this one. Horizontally is not that wide. Vertically is very wide. So the separation of his feet is vertical. It's not this way. So you can try it over here. Just do a couple of turns super wide, and you'll notice that when I'm very wide with my stance, I have more tendency to push as I edge the ski. Narrower stance, you'll develop a little bit more pulling. I'm pulling from the pelvis. I'm lightening, I'm pulling on the inside half of my body from the pelvis. Make sense? There we go.